Give her a warm welcome, please. Natasha Leonnet. She has worked on, wait for it, almost 80 feature films. But when did you know that you wanted to be a colorist?
So when I studied film at Brown University in Rhode Island, and I did film theory. I didn't even know that a colorist existed. We were making non-narrative, very experimental films, and we would send, at the time we were using film acquisitions, we were using film cameras, and we would send the film to be processed in New York, and it would come back on a tape, and we didn't know how that happened. So it was sort of this mystery to me. And then I made my thesis film in the Czech Republic, and I studied Czech, and so when I finished with school, I moved to the Czech Republic. And I, through sort of a series of lucky accidents, I became a post-production supervisor. And so I had to learn about color correction really, really fast. Ironically, the first time that I ever saw it sort of happen, I thought, I never want to be in this color suite again. Because the presentation that I saw of color correction just seemed so uninspired and sort of boring. And then I met a colorist who was the antithesis of that. She was based in Munich, and I watched her work, and I thought, this is what I've always wanted. To me, I'd thought about editing, but when I watched her, I thought, this is my sensibility, this is my strength, is really understanding colors and lending them to a story and using color to tell, basically the story, the emotion of the story. And so that's where I thought I would be strongest. And so I did an apprenticeship with this colorist, Biggie Clear, in Munich, and then it grew from there. At the time when I started, it was not being used for feature films. So in my mind, I was going to be working only on commercials and music videos, which I was perfectly happy to do. And then right within that first year, it was introduced for feature films, and that was thrilling. Wow. And so it just sort of took off from there. When we're lucky, we get to start right at the beginning with the LUT creation and help to shape or support the cinematographer in creating the look from the beginning, basically with the LUT. And then sometimes a colorist will be Daly's colorist, and so they're doing the CDLs, the color decision lists, for the first step in the color correction and helping to establish the look. At EFILM, you come in, you're very, very lucky. You've had an amazing assistant who's set up the room for you, who's calibrated the room, who's made sure that your projector is perfect in terms of the light level and the color balance of the projector. And you have your files, and you just start. If you're right on the first day of a project, that means that you're going to be setting looks. You set masters, so you try to pick a few shots that are representative for every single scene. And then after that, usually you have the director and the cinematographer there with you as you're establishing a look. And then normally you're sort of given some time by yourself to brush in those looks, and everybody looks at it once you're done. And then you will start to really fine tune it. And, basically depending on the budget of the film, it sort of determines how in depth you'll get in the fine tuning. A normal day is, anywhere from 8 hours to much, much more. It just depends on, the project. Sometimes it'll happen that you're on one project until 6 p.m. and then, another client needs you to look at their files at night, so you'll work on that. But honestly, it never feels like a hardship because it's such beautiful work. So I don't know. I always just feel very lucky.
Yeah. How many movies are you working on at the same time?
These last few months I've just been working on one. But you can, I've had moments where I think I've been on 2 to 3 projects simultaneously, but that's rare. I mean, we're very blessed at EFILM that they really try to work with the schedules to make it that we can just focus all of our attention on the project that we're on.
Do you have any advice for anybody in the room who may want to be a colorist?
I think in terms of wanting to be a colorist, watch as many films as you possibly can and pay attention to the ones that really speak to you color-wise. Really try to develop your color acuity and your color awareness. And I think that, in terms of color correction work, it's incredibly important because You might have a client who's asking you to create a very surreal world that doesn't necessarily reflect the world that we're in, or a world that feels incredibly true and honest. And you have to take your color awareness and make sure that you're telling the story that they're asking you to tell as best as you possibly can. Also, when you're watching films, you'll become aware, of maybe which colors work you really enjoy, which cinematographers work you really love. And I think that can kind of help take you in a path of, which color correction house you'd like to go to do an apprenticeship maybe, and just kind of find your path from there. I really think that that's more important than just diving into the technical. The technical you will get into completely once you're at that post house. On every single film, I learned something. I've never felt like there wasn't a film where I finished it and felt like, oh, well, I knew everything already when I started. Every single filmmaker and with every film has something to teach me. And I feel like I just get better and better with every single project.
What advice can you give to them for when they are in that room to help you help them?
References.
Okay.
You cannot provide enough references. Let's just say you say the color magenta, to many people that can mean many different things. And in order to use the time as efficiently as you possibly can, if you have a reference that says this is exactly the color that I'm thinking of, then it really saves so much time in the color correction room. If you have films that you want to reference, and just bring in stills, that's really going to help save time as well. Because again, it's an interpretation that happens in the room, and you want to make sure that colorist nails exactly what you have as your vision. Honestly, I would just cold call a post house and just try to say who's the person who's in charge of the assistants and hiring, and just try to get through to that person, send emails. If you don't hear the first time, just keep trying, because chances are there will be an opening, and it's just a matter of persistence. Don't get discouraged. Every time one door closes, chances are another one is going to open. So just don't take that door closing as a sign that you shouldn't keep trying if that's where your heart is.